recorded.
Hi there.
Good
Sorry I'm
evening,
late.
Councillor Sharp.
Sorry I'm late. I was coming straight from a community benefits meeting, and I am now here.
Okay, well, that's all right. We have just started the meeting because there were technical problems earlier. And so we now have everybody that was going to be in attendance And a couple of, so can I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda? Oh, you moved your hand, Colin, thank you. And seconded by Ryan. Any objection to that? I see no objection, so that's approved. And then the next item on the agenda is current items update, Green Awards. Haley, can you bring us up to speed?
Yeah, I'm actually going to pass this over to Olivia. I think we got to the point where everything was, I guess, in the town's hands to be able to start the promotion. But we need to still discuss about updating the schedule, as we haven't sent the invitation out yet to for people to participate.
All right, Olivia, can you help us here?
Yeah, so what I was thinking is I made kind of a draft schedule. So I was thinking that on June 27th, we could announce on all of the social media and the website that the awards are available for or open for nominations.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking that on actually the 4th, the period would begin of nominations and close on July 22nd. And then the next Green Committee meeting is July 27th. So the thought was that maybe during that meeting, we could acknowledge the nominees and then kind of plan how we want to do the social media shout outs to acknowledge the winners, and then also kind of come up with a few ideas on how we wanted to update council on it.
All right, thank you. I just have a question, and help me here if I followed you incorrectly. I think you said the next meeting is July 22nd?
27th.
27th. And the dates for the nominations to be closed would be July 22nd.
22nd.
Okay. And then you suggested we bring those names forward at the time for us to discuss at the meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, so from my understanding, we weren't going to necessarily do winners, but more acknowledge everyone who was nominated if it fits the criteria.
Okay.
So just more kind of a discussion and maybe a presentation on who was nominated and what the initiative was.
All right, that sounds fine. And then the next step, and would this take place at the July 27th meeting or a subsequent meeting as to who is going to pick who picks the winners and when?
Yeah, so I had the nomination period closes on the 22nd, so that gives a few days to kind of go over the nominations. I think in terms of who is choosing the winners, maybe that's a better discussion for the community to kind of go over. I know before Haley and Aaron mentioned that they were going to be part of that kind of subcommittee, but maybe a few other members want to join.
All right, I'll pass it back to Haley and Aaron. Have you had some thoughts about this, and if so, what are they?
Yeah, I think the idea was not to have winners as such, but just to acknowledge everyone that did meet that criteria. So we'll give a social media shout out to anyone that submits, as long as they fit the criteria of having I don't know what the word is. I think we had,
fits?
Yeah, because we had come up with a list of sort of the ideas of what would be the criteria to be acknowledged. So I think we stick with that, and instead of having to pick, like, rank them.
Right. Well, that makes it much friendlier, I think, and much easier for everybody. Olivia, do you concur with this?
Yeah, that works for me. I think my question though is on the 22nd, when it does close, how would you kind of want to filter through the nominations that have come through? And the ones that did come through, is there someone that kind of wants to lead the presentation or the acknowledgements of the award?
Olivia, just send it to me and Haley, and we'll filter through any that we find that didn't meet the criteria, and then we'll bring the list of those who did to the next meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
Ladies, thank you very much for stepping forward for that. Henry and Ryan and Councillor Sharp, does that sound agreeable to the three of you gentlemen?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Sounds good.
so we're all right with that. We look forward to Olivia seeing the media send off, and hopefully we get a number of people to nominate others. I'm assuming a person or party can nominate themselves. Very good. Well, we'll see where this all gets. I think it's a wonderful initiative for this committee, and it'll be the, getting this out in the social media. We'll put our committee's name up on another banner. This is good. And the next item was Main Street East Heritage Conservation District report. And I believe it was Carl, Chair Carl, who stepped forward to be involved with this. Carl's not with us this evening. So Olivia, is this something that do you feel that we can put on to another meeting?
Yeah, I don't have an update for that one. I'm not sure if Peter or Katie do, but I think that if not, we can push it to the next meeting.
All right. And is this topic, is this the same as the Downtown Reimagined project?
No, I think they're two different studies.
Okay. And they're running concurrently then, are they? Okay. Thank you very much for that. So now we're moving on to staff updates, and the ball is pretty well, I believe, in your court, Olivia. And what I'd like to do, folks, is Olivia's got 10 items in front of her, is go through each item, and if there's any questions or discussions, let's have them at the end of each item, so that we're not all over the map at the end of Olivia's discussions or presentations. So the first one's called Garden Club Tree Sales.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen quickly. Can everyone see this? Is it showing up full screen or is it cut off a bit?
It's full screen, Olivia.
Full screen, you can see everything there?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Garden Club tree sale was a success. I think so. There was 164 trees and shrubs sold. Sorry, it's getting cut off on my screen, so I'm just going to switch to this view. So there's a wide range of native and Carolinian species. So that event took place, I think it was the first weekend of May. So it's been a bit now, but everyone was really happy with that. And I just wanted to provide an update because I know the Garden Club had given that presentation back in the March meeting.
Wonderful. And did that meet the expectations of those involved, Olivia?
Yes, it did. I think there was a few trees left over, but they were able to resell them during their plant sale at the beginning of June. So.
Right. And I have to put out a hand of thanks. I believe Ryan and was it you, Haley, that assisted with that day, or my memory? So
yeah, the Garden Club tree sale was a separate initiative, but Haley, the Green Committee Seedling program is, I think, what you're talking about.
Yes. So those who helped out, thank you very much. Okay, any questions of Olivia on the Garden Club tree sales? Okay, seeing none, let's go over to the, and that is Green Committee Seedling, was that was already part of your report, or do you have more to say about that, Aaron? I mean, not Aaron, Olivia.
Yeah, so sorry. So the first one I talked about was about the garden club tree sale.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a separate initiative. And then this one that I'm going to talk about is the Green Committee Seedling Program. So in the previous meetings, we had talked about doing the seedling giveaway. So that happened on May the 27th. And there was 200 seedlings. So there was 50 white pine, 50 eastern red cedar, 50 hackberry, and then 50 bur oak, which went out into the community. I think there was a lot of interest in it, and a lot of good feedback from it. We did not give them all away during the market, but we were able to give some to staff just because there was kind of that quick turnaround to get them planted into the ground. So they all went to good homes. Yeah, and then just shout out to Aaron and Ryan for helping at the farmers market.
Well, thank you very much for that. And also congratulations. I think when you start on first time programs, there's always a few bumps in the road or whatever, or question marks, and you seem to have gotten over those well. And so a shout of thanks out to yourself. Okay, third item, Npca restoration draft.
Yeah, so this
a restoration project grant. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is just kind of continuing on from previous meetings. So back in December, we applied for the Npca restoration program. So we got in for 2 different locations, the first one being Centennial Park, and that happened on the April 30th, I believe it was. So there was 50 volunteers who came to help with the planting. Shout out to Ryan for coming to that and helping. And then there's 460 trees with a wide variety of native species and a lot of Carolinian species as well that were planted all along the creek at Centennial Park.
Well, I'm very happy to see your numbers there, and to get 50 volunteers out for that. I think is a tremendous accomplishment. Shows that your whatever conduits you're using to reach the public are working. And Ryan, thanks again. Okay, I think the next one is Trails Master Plan. Olivia?
Yes, I think this, sorry, I have one more item. I don't know if it was
okay, go ahead.
But with those trees that were planted or given away, so the seedlings, the tree sale, and then also the staff tree planting with Mpca, we created a tree tracking map. So what we did is we kind of asked for permission for anyone who purchased or received a seedling, purchased a tree or received a seedling, for their address, which we were going to then track through GIS on a map. So we created this interactive map that's now public. And it's just kind of a cool way to track everything that's been going on. So far we have 347 either trees or seedlings that have gone to a private property, and then 460 that have been planted on public property. And then this number is going to kind of hopefully keep going up. We have quite a few different trees that are being planted in the parks this year, which I'll map on here with their species and a bit more information as well.
Good. I'm just going to go back with you for a second, Olivia. With the Npca restoration grant, did you mention there were 2 areas that were involved?
Yes. So
first one's
Centennial Park.
Yeah.
And the second one is 40 Mile Park, 40 Mile Creek.
Yes.
I'll talk about that a bit later, but that's not occurring until the fall.
Okay. And speaking of 40 Mile Creek, and this question may be premature, is there a program in mind for removal of hazardous trees in that area?
Not at the current time. I know last year they did a big cleanup throughout there, but it's something that we can definitely explore.
Okay, I mentioned that because I can't remember. One, I'm familiar with the property, as I'm sure other members of the committee are, but there was a meeting, I I'm going to say a year ago at least, some town staff, Npca staff, about the different conditions at the 40 Mile Creek and the hazardous trees. So, and they're not going away without assistance. So if you're going to be reporting on that later on, this is good.
Yes, those trees were removed following that meeting. I think they did it the week after. So.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to. I have not been back there since that meeting, so I'll have to get down just to reorientate myself. Thank you very much. So are we on to the Trails Master Plan now?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Please continue.
So the Trails Master Plan is still making progress. The date has been extended a bit for more community engagement. So just to kind of remind everyone, there's the pop-up approach that we've been doing. So there's the interactive maps at the Peach King Center, the library, and then also we have it at a few events and farmers markets where people can kind of interact and take a look at those maps. And then there's also the digital participation on Let's Talk that people can do. So it's not as formal, and we're just trying to hope that everyone can kind of take the opportunity to participate and kind of take a break from those Zoom meetings. And we're just kind of hoping that the committee can help promote the opportunity for residents to give feedback.
Okay. You mentioned the date has been extended. So what date are we looking at now for public input?
So right now it's kind of dependent. At the previous council meeting, there was a report regarding the exploration of doing the rail trail. So I think at the next meeting that would be officially approved. So it's kind of pending the firm dates.
All right. Well, that leads to another question. I apologize right now. I cannot, because Olivia's sharing the screen, and that's fine. I cannot see Henry or Councillor Sharp. So if either one of you gentlemen wish to say anything, please just pipe up and we'll hear you. But you mentioned, Olivia, rail trail. Can you identify what we mean by the rail trail?
There's a delegation at council, I think at the end of May, and it was just looking at exploring, I guess, the east to west trail connection along the trail line. But I think that there's still more discussions to come, but that's kind of why the timeline maybe for the community engagement is going to be extended a bit.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. The delegation was to council. Would this not have been received in a way to become input towards the Trails Master Plan, as something jumped ahead of the Trails Master Plan?
So it's part of the Trails Master Plan. Part of it is they're kind of looking at the feasibility of the different routes and then helping build a plan that we can kind of use as a building block into the future when we're planning, like when we're prioritizing what future trails
yes
to implement.
Okay, I'm just a little confused because while we're waiting, while the town is waiting for public input.
So we're waiting for public input. We've added an additional, we've extended the scope to include the feasibility study of the rail trail.
Is that separate from the Trails Master Plan?
So it'll be additional to the scope of work that was originally for the Trails Master Plan.
Okay. Is that I'm still confused here. I'm not trying to create a problem at all. I wasn't aware that there was a delegation for East-West Corridor on the rail trail. Now, is this the idea behind this? Is this a trail paralleling the CNR track?
Yes, I'm not like completely caught up on exactly what the report will look at. I think that at the next council meeting, we'll kind of have a clear idea of where the next steps will be. So maybe I can provide an update following that.
Next steps for what? The Trails Master Plan or for this rail trail?
For both. So the Trails Master Plan and the rail trail will be kind of one. So the idea of the rail trail would be to kind of include on the proposed network the rail trail if it's feasible.
Okay, because there's a lot of different parties involved for that, yeah. And I just assume that the consultant and staff team would be working on all viable options for trail. Councillor Sharp, can you add anything to this discussion about?
Yeah, so I talked to the delegation was from Rob Blom, and he is an advocate for the rail trail. I'm not sure the feasibility. Like, I haven't looked at the exact boundaries of where. So there's a hydro easement along there. I don't know how much of it is owned by the CN Rail and how much of it is owned by private. So, for example, I work at NRB.
Yep.
And there's a portion of our yard that is in the hydro easement. We use it for parking, and you're not allowed to build structures there, but it's owned, but it's in an easement. And so I don't know the ownership of all the lands on the rail trail. There's also like the Kanga storage where they do like some trailer storage there. And so I don't know exactly what areas are owned by the CN Rail. I don't know about like how close they are to the train tracks.
Well, that certainly sounds to be your answer matches what I thought would be the concerns with identifying a trail corridor along the tracks, and if it was a citizen making a delegation for that, I assume that delegation has certainly highlighted the need for or possibility of, and I just assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that his comments will become all part of or be reviewed by the consultant and the staff team for this. Would I be correct in saying that, Olivia?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So anything, let's see here. I interrupted you. You have more to say about the Trails Master Plan and its approach?
No, I think that covers it. So just a reminder to maybe kind of engage with some of the residents or community members to get them to take a look at the proposed network that's either at one of the interactive maps or on the digital participation, just so we can get as much community feedback as possible.
Okay.
So if I can mention one thing.
Go ahead, Councillor Sharp.
So I was talking to John Holborn, and he lives down at the base of the Gibson Trail, like near the bridge.
Yes.
The pedestrian bridge. And so he's an advocate for connecting our Southward Park to the Defasco trails on the mountain.
Yes.
Via road allowances, and he can show you the areas where he wants to do it. I think it's much more involved than he thinks it is, but maybe Olivia, you can answer about the Trails Master Plan. Was there what was the result or the outcome of trail connection towards Hamilton from Southward Park?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would say that maybe it would be best if he kind of took a look at the proposed networks that are on the page. It's an interactive map, so it's actually kind of cool to navigate. And then even just add his feedback directly onto there. And I think it might be a great way for him to kind of get an understanding of what work has occurred so far and where we're going in the future with the plan.
Good. Okay. And Councillor Sharp, first of all, thanks for your clarification on the rail trail delegation. And this gentleman, Mr. Holborn, is it that you mentioned?
It is, yeah, John.
Yes. Has he been in contact with Sarah Sweeney, your staff?
Well, he is. he's got a lot of ideas though. It's hard to keep him on topic with the one.
Well,
But
he's aware, I assume, that public input is welcome.
yeah, and we've taken it. But I remember because I looked at the trails master plan, and there's some. They have connections there, but at current they're on-road connections or improvements to on-road connections. But he's talking more about like putting trails on road allowances right now that are, and it's just, to me, it seems like it's a lot of work. A lot of those road allowances are overgrown and they're not.
Well,
it's not.
You think
require quite a bit of work and some budget.
Well, you're absolutely right in that. And if I can just take a second for the committee's background, the Defasco Trail was a project of the Hamilton Conservation Authority, started around the year 2020, and it's entirely on the road right of way of what's known as Powerline Road. And it extends from the 11th line, almost the Hamilton Grimsby border, to Devil's Punch Bowl at the first line. And there's only a kilometer that's on actual road. And the rest of it was cut through the Vine Mount Swamp with one of the longest boardwalks in Ontario. And the rest and half of the trail is through I'm going to say scrub areas or upland woods with a gravel base. And yes, Councillor Sharp, it was a big job, took a number of years to complete, and it cost a lot of money. And Defasco initially put up most of the money for that. And I know I've had some discussions with Sarah Sweeney about connecting it or continuing on with the idea of the Defasco Trail heading east. And I believe as when we look at the draft Trails Master Plan, possible routes are shown because there are, as you mentioned, road easements up there, and it won't happen overnight. But if the master plan sets out that here's the route that could be followed, then the town can explore that as time goes by. At least that's what I hope will happen. And because I can't tell you what the benefits of having the Defasco Trail has been to Hamilton. It's a major trail for the community, which is enjoyed by many people from Niagara because it basically starts right on the Niagara-Hamilton border at the 11th line. So we look forward to seeing how all that moves forward there. And Councillor Sharp, if you're talking to Mr. Holburn or have his contact information, please invite him to participate in the public participation aspect, getting his ideas to the consultant.
I do have his information, and I actually got it from the phone book. He's got an old school home phone. You can look him up.
Well, if I had a phone book, I'd do that. So anyways, keep that information close, and I'm hoping that his input can be filtered through. Okay. Right, let's see. Anything else? Are we, Olivia, with the Trails Master Plan?
I think that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we are looking forward to a new date to come along, and I guess for termination of public input, and at some time there will be another step or stage in the consultant's report, and I'm hoping that that will be brought forward to the Green Committee and of course the Active Committee for what the next step is in this process. And speaking of trails then, I saw a news flash, and Councillor Sharp, you were involved with ribbon cutting on the, I think it's the Gibson Street Bridge.
Yes, I was.
Go ahead, Councillor Sharp.
So the bridge has been up for a month or so, but we had the official ribbon cutting, and it's great. I have a friend who lives in the area, and we it's a good connection between downtown and the Bruce Trail. Well, yes. I mean, it's not a real inconvenience, but you have to walk around to get to Gibson Street, and it just a small detour like that. You'd be surprised how many people will not use the trail because of that.
Yes, exactly, and I look forward to this new bridge, because the old bridge was there for a generation, to just reconnect the community with the trail connections and the neighborhood connections that did exist in Grimsby. And so that's been a long time in the running. We're in the works, and now it's completed, and this is good. Okay. Olivia, did you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're on to a summer meeting schedule. Did you have anything to say about that, Olivia? Or is this up for discussion now with the committee?
I don't have anything to add to that. I think it's more for the committee to discuss if they want to proceed with all of the summer meetings.
Certainly. Can I see a show of hands, please? There's a straw vote, straw poll of who would like to see a meeting in July and August. So I see no hands up. Who would like to have a meeting in July? See no hands up. Who would like to have a meeting in August?
I got my hand up. I don't know if you can see me.
I can see, yeah, I can see everybody now. Okay, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4 hands. I'll put my hand up as well. So I think what we'll do, Olivia, is recommend to staff that there not be a July meeting, and that the next meeting will be in August. But before I say that, and I'm looking at Aaron and Haley. Just a few minutes ago, we talked about the nominations for the Green Awards. If we don't have a July meeting and this gets pushed to August, does this cause problems for you and or staff?
I'm here July.
Yeah. Hey, Haley's here in July and I'm here in August. We don't mind looking at it in the meantime, but yeah, I guess whatever we decide, it'll be the next meeting, whether it's July or August, is when we'll bring those nominations, I guess, to the rest of the committee.
Okay.
We'll have it ready for the next meeting, whether it's July or August, because one of us is available for each month. Like Haley's available in July and I'm available in August. So depending on when the meeting is set, one of us will be available for it to give the information over.
So I think this might work out all right. Nominations closed July 22nd. That gives Aaron and Haley time to review them. And if we're not meeting again until August, that gives plenty of time. And for the August meeting, there might even be a list circulated ahead of time by staff to the committee members, just so that we have a chance to review it before the meeting to understand what's going on. So does that sound like it'll work for you, Olivia?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't messing around with any schedules to do with September or whatever else. All right, so we'll have a meeting in August. Mr. Todd, do you have a date in mind? Can anybody looking at a calendar tell us when that date might be?
It'll be the 31st of August.
31st of August, okay. August 31st, does that conflict at all with the, let's see, what day of the week?
Are you sure it's the 31st? Isn't it supposed to be the 4th Wednesday of each month, which would make it the 24th.
Yes, that's a valid point.
I thought it was is it the 4th or is it the last Wednesday? of
I
the
don't
month?
think it's the last, because otherwise this meeting today would be next week.
Okay, it's I'm not arguing it.
Yeah.
It could be the 24th.
Okay, well,
Right.
Yeah.
we're going to pencil it in right now. And if you would be so kind, committee members, to pencil it into your calendar for August 24th. Olivia, if you think there's any change to that, after discussing with Mr. Todd or Sarah Sweeney, could you let the committee members know right away? Well, thank you very kindly for that. And so the next item, up again, is electric fleet. Olivia, do you have something that you can provide to us?
I don't have much more to add on. Where I think that there's always a push for the electric items, but it's kind of a work in progress and how we work that into the procurement of.
Okay. I'm going to thank you for that. I am going to ask this be back on the August agenda for two reasons. One, it's been ongoing question for a long time. And a recent conversation I had with Sarah Sweeney about this, Director Sweeney, was that it might be best for the manager who looks after the fleet or purchasing the fleet. I thought I heard that he or she, I don't know the individual, would be able to speak to the committee and tell the committee what is in plan. So I'd like that to be reflected in the minutes, so that if an invitation needs to go out from Director Sweeney's office to the person responsible for fleet, that the invitation is open for us to learn about what the town has in plan. Does that sound all right to you, Olivia?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, and I apologize, committee members. I want to make sure that now you also have input now. I was simply repeating a conversation that I had with Director Sweeney for your information. Any other thoughts from committee members at this time? Okay. Oh, Colin.
Thanks, Bruce. I think it's a good thing to gently push back on that, especially on things that can be easily gone to electric: weed eaters, chainsaws. The performance of battery operated tools like that is equal to gas, and with the price of gas, I think it's something that hopefully we can get the manager of fleet to commit to. I know it's challenging when you talk about lawnmowers and vehicles and other things to go electric, but I think it's kind of a no-brainer to migrate any new purchases of lawn care equipment that can be electric over to electric, and it's just a matter of making that commitment. So I like the idea of asking them to come here and just seeing what their plan is, and if it's not what we're hoping, then maybe we can convince them that's the way we should be doing this.
Well, thank you very much. And I think you're absolutely right, Colin. We have to know what's in plan before we make comment, and we'll go from there. Okay, next one, back is item 8. Back to you, Olivia. Grass mowing. Do you have anything to report to us?
Yeah, so in the April meeting, we discussed the possibility of committee members coming with a few options of maybe trial areas of where they would want to naturalize it. So I think we're kind of hoping on having the discussion here, and also kind of focusing more on the education and promotion of what the initiative is. So residents kind of have an idea of what's going on and why we're doing it.
Okay. Did any of the committee members submit to Olivia or Director Sweeney ideas on areas that could be naturalized or to do with a reduction in grass mowing?
No, I didn't get
Okay.
any emails, but I think we were hoping more to have the discussion during the meeting.
All right. Did you recall, Olivia, getting my email?
I believe so. It's following the April meeting.
Yes, it had to do with slope, specifically with 2 slopes.
Yes.
Okay. I have, Haley, you have your hand up.
I had suggested at the last meeting, I didn't email Olivia about it, but I had mentioned the one space near my home that might be a good area. Olivia, I'll email you so you have that in writing as a suggestion. I just also wanted to suggest that I know we want to make sure the communication with the community is in line with doing this trial so that you don't get unwarranted complaints and you address things like ticks and other issues that might come up. Maybe even a signage at the actual space that you're doing these trials would be good. So when someone's walking by and they're like, oh my gosh, that whole area hasn't been cut in a while. Why is that? They can immediately see a sign posted that explains that the town is doing a trial with this mowing or lack of mowing. So I just wanted to suggest that.
My apologies, Aaron. I don't know where you live. What area are you talking about?
Oh, I had suggested the corner. There's a small empty lot. I think it's actually MTO owned. I'm not sure that it's the town's property, but the town currently mows it. It's on the corner of Betts and Lake Street. Betts, Fair, and Lake. It's beside me, basically. It's my name, the lot beside me. And it's got a big slope on it, and I'm constantly watching the poor guys in their mowers, like trying not to tip. So I just thought it would be a good suggestion for multiple reasons. It's a small enough area, so it wouldn't be too big, and no one uses it for anything. It just sits there and gets mowed when the town comes by, and that's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Haley. And Henry, you're nodding your head. In agreement, or did you have anything to add?
No, in agreement. We do that at work too. We have a bioswale that we don't maintain, and we just have signage up there because otherwise we do get people saying, how come you're not mowing that area? So I like the idea of putting signage up.
Thank you very much. In regards to mowing, Olivia, you may not be partial to this, or maybe you are. Back in the winter time when this was on the agenda, it was suggested that I write up some possible wording for this very thing that you're talking about as to how we communicate with the public. I did submit that to Director Sweeney and a couple of, I'm going to refer simply to as talking points to do with mowing and to do with electrification of the fleet, not only for the town purposes, but also as to talking points as to how to communicate with the citizens of the town. I did not hear back from staff after I wrote out this information and submitted it there. So that is there. And I would hope, and previously I had submitted from times before this committee started and other times since, written comments about grass mowing in the town of Grimsby, ideas of what could be adopted. And I know from experience that there's pros and cons, but this committee is asking for it to be explored. So I'm hoping that at the August meeting, Director Sweeney may be present or a report provided to us. And as we've discussed before, this also involves Public Works because they mow grass as well. And so I think I can speak for the committee members. We're going to be talking about this monthly. And we only have a few months left. And Olivia, I know you're relatively new to the force, and it's been good having you with us, but we're asking you to send the message, or I could call Director Sweeney and ask her where we are with this, so we can have a frank discussion on grass mowing. And one of those sites, Olivia, that I sent to you by email, the beach to the west of Casablanca. There's a beach on either side of Casablanca. And prior last year, a large steep slope was not mowed. But then last year, it was mowed. And so we'll look forward to having a discussion. And as Olivia suggested or asked committee members, and Haley, you've already offered too, if you see areas that could be brought to staff's attention of grass mowing, please send your thoughts or observations in. That will help staff in their discussions that way. Okay, the next one, number 9, Olivia, is tree canopy. That's a broad subject here. Can you help us bring to us what you have?
Yeah, so the biggest update that I have is that we're still working kind of on the inventory of, I speak for the parks trees at least. So with that tree tracking map that I shared earlier, that's kind of how we're going to start tracking, at least for the public property, specific species, when they're planted, the dates that they kind of may need maintenance, just so we can monitor it that way. So I'm going to be working on adding all the new trees that get added to the public property. And then we're also going to be kind of doing an inventory to the best of our ability of the trees that are planted currently. So it's kind of a work in progress, but we have some tools through GIS that we're able to kind of monitor and take the inventory at the parks.
All right, thank you for that. We look forward to seeing how that progresses. To the committee members, I'm going to throw out a couple of thoughts. I'd like some discussion around them if we could. One has to do with, I guess, policy of tree planting in the town. There's both Public Works and the Parks Recreation Department carry out tree planting. What is the budget of it? Can it be expanded? Are trees that are cut down replaced? So one of the big questions we have of staff, and Olivia, I'm hoping you can pass this on, is the committee, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, would like to know what the policy of the town is, present policy. No sense commenting upon it if the wheel's already been invented. Like, what is the policy of the town? What percentage of the budget goes towards tree planting? And what's the policy in terms of trees that are cut down as to the replacement of them? Is there a native tree list that the town must follow for tree planting on town property? So those, so that I think would all fall under the policy. So Olivia, the question, I think, is what is the town's policy on tree planting? And I'd like to open the floor to the members of the committee. Thoughts, suggestions, please.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I did notice, Olivia, are you involved in any of the, I see the street trees being planted on Livingston, and actually it looks great. They're just in formation straight down in the boulevard on the roadside of the sidewalk.
I was not involved, so that was roads, I believe, that did that. But similar to that, we're doing parks, I think, in the next week. So it's kind of through the same contract. But this tree species, I think what they do is obviously site specific, but they aim for the native species and, if possible, Carolinian species as well.
If anybody is driving through town, you'll notice it. It looks great.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ryan. And Councillor Sharp, if I can ask you a question of you. Quite a while back, I believe there was a motion, I think Councillor Vardy brought it forward, to do with the Carolinian or native trees. Do you recall where that motion got to?
I don't remember. We had a discussion about it. And the motion, it was actually headed by John Holborn, who he wanted to make Grimsby the magnolia capital of the world or something. And but the magnolia species are it's a certain type of Carolinian tree that's very tropical looking, and it moved from magnolias. There's another name for the type?
Well, I thought it was specifically, or shouldn't say specifically, but a little general, it was to do with Carolinian species.
Yeah, it was. And then
we are in the Carolinian forest section of Canada.
Yeah, and I think that eventually, I don't know what the actual motion was, and we might have just received something, but because I think we did have some discussion about native trees, because not all of the trees that we would like to plant are necessarily Carolinian. There are some that are native in Carolinian forests, but Carolinian is because Jeff Jordan has a little more in-depth knowledge of this, but Carolinian is like a subset of so there's some trees that are native to this area that are not Carolinian trees. This is Carolinian forest, but some of the trees like the sugar maple and some other trees that we value to have aren't Carolinian trees, but they are native species. So I forget the exact direction that it went. We'd have to go to the clerk to ask, but we did come to the conclusion that it was native. But I don't know if we might have given some direction to staff, or we might have asked, maybe the Npca has a list of native trees or something. Well, and my point was that Carolinian was like a subgroup, and they were very specific. Some trees that are native to this area and that grow here and that we really value are not Carolinian. So,
but that was yes, and I appreciate your comment there. There's a wide interpretation of the Carolinian forest zone as to what's Carolinian, what's not, and if a tree, as you mentioned, it's a sugar maple. It's growing in the Carolinian zone, but by some, it's not considered a Carolinian species, such as shagbark hickory or cucumber magnolia, but it's a major component of the Carolinian forest. So I understand where there's some confusion, but I'm glad you mentioned about native, because I think, Livia, you worked very hard on putting together a list of native trees, and in all of our discussions with the Seedling program, you worked hard to put that, combine that into the native tree discussion. And so I think the committee really appreciates that. But now we have the question, did that translate into a policy for the city, so that we're assured that parks and or public works department are only planting native trees?
Bruce, sorry to interrupt, but can we maybe take a step back, and can we ask or give some advice to the town staff to prepare a list of native? I know we talked a little bit about this, but can we first look at a list, and then we can even publish this list for people to be aware of what the native species are? I'm interested, but I don't know exactly what is native.
Well, your point's very good, and I think what about asking for a list, I think what the committee is looking for is what the present town policy is, and that's what the committee requires before we discuss this much further, in my opinion. And because that policy, I think would include, Councillor Sharp, what species are being planted or being planned to be planted by different town forces. We just need, it's like talking about, I'm sorry, Councillor Sharp, I overspoke you. I missed what you said.
The question I would ask first is, do we have a policy? We might not. We might just be flying by recommendation from, there may be no policy. The policy might be,
well,
pick a tree. And
I think you and I are asking the same thing, because when we asked to see the town policy, if policy doesn't come forward, then the answer is no, there is no policy. And then that puts this committee in a very different framework, in that we would be recommending that the town come up with policy. And as we were talking about electrification of the fleet, we discussed that it would be helpful for the fleet manager or the procurement officer to come forward to this committee and tell us where they are today, because we may be very pleased with their answer or policy as to what's going to happen tomorrow. And you know, so I think the same thing with the tree planting policy. What is it? And if it's available to us, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I can speak to that, I think. So at
please do, Olivia.
Yeah, currently I don't think there is a formal policy for the town. I think that each department kind of has their own suggestions or recommendations that they follow, but we have been working on a policy that's kind of go across all departments. There's been a lot of changes in staff, and a lot of department heads have kind of been switching. So there's been kind of a pause in that timeline, but it is something that we hope to keep exploring. We have done some work on creating a draft policy, but it's just kind of making sure that we have everything covered, and making sure that everyone's on board with it.
All right. This is good news. You have, and I'm not going to ask you, I got to be careful how I ask this question, because I don't want to put anybody on the spot. And you being the staff person here, I don't want to put you on the spot. I would hope that the draft policy might come to the committee for review before it goes to council. And I would hope that that draft policy come to this committee prior to the end of this council's term or this committee's term. So those I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, members of the committee, I think those are would be clear wishes of this committee. And Olivia, if this could be noted in the minutes, that the committee would be looking for an ability to review the draft policy, and for that policy to be brought forward before the end of our committee term. So I'll leave that with you. Is that fair in your mind?
In terms of timeline, I am not sure. I don't know if there's any conversations in the works picking back up where we left off with that policy. So I'm not sure before the end of the term, but I do know that staff are kind of committed to continue working on it. It's just, I'm not sure that we'll be able to do that before that September deadline.
Before what deadline?
September is the last committee meeting.
September?
I believe so.
Councillor Sharp. Oh yes, that's right. Because I'm going to ask you a question, Councillor Sharp, and you may have to go to the clerk. The election's in October, but Councillor Sharp, do you think committees stop in September?
I'm not sure, but I know that council's not appointed until the beginning of December, when they're elected,
Mm-hmm.
and then we don't advertise for the new committees until January.
Yes.
So I mean, there would be an argument to say that the subcommittees could continue until the end of the year.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know the rules.
And I totally understand that, because no matter what agency I'm involved with, there's always a gray area around the date of the election and the end of the term, and who's doing what in that, some people call lame duck era time frame. And so Olivia, if you could for us direct a question to Director Sweeney or the clerk or CAO, and provide a definitive answer to us as to when the last meeting of the Green Committee would be. Is that fair?
Yeah, I will make a request to find out, and I'll make sure to email it. I'll send a schedule when I receive the update.
If you could include in that to ask the question, can we meet in October and November?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Could I have a motion? Because this meeting's gone fairly quickly. I don't know whether committee members, do you think we need a motion to ask for a draft policy, or could we simply ask staff to report on the progress of the draft policy and the anticipated date that it would be available for review? Councillor Sharp, do you think we need a motion for that?
Yeah, I'd like to request that they give whatever draft they have in whatever stage it's in, that we could review it, understanding that it's a draft. I don't see why we can't have our hands and our eyes on it right now. It's not like it's a top secret.
It's not a financial matter.
No, yeah. So it's like we can have a look at it, and then we can discuss it.
Okay.
And I can't see any reason why that's not. I'd ask town staff Olivia if there's any objection to that.
I don't know if I can speak to that one fully. I'll have to find out an answer, but what I may suggest is if there's something that the committee really feels that they want to make sure it's covered in the draft in the meantime, maybe send that to staff so that we can add it to the draft while we're waiting to finally get approval to proceed with it.
Olivia, I appreciate that invitation. But again, I think the committee members may find themselves in a position of wanting to know what the wheel looks like already before we suggest that we add spokes or take spokes away from the wheel that's been designed. And Councillor Sharp, would you be prepared to move a motion asking that staff bring to the Green Committee what progress or the draft policy as it stands as of our next meeting in August?
I would move that we request the town staff bring us the current iteration of draft policy just for review, and it's the August meeting.
Thank you.
Seconder for that.
Yeah, and this is the policies to do with trees in the town.
Yeah, so the draft for the tree planting policy.
Yes. Okay, we can be specific with that because that's a start rather than having it all over the map. So tree planting policy, planting and replacement policy. Can I have a seconder for Councillor Sharp's motion? Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Motion's carried. So that
And then just a little bit to add to that, Olivia, and if you can report to Sarah, if the policy is not complete, we're not expecting you guys to bring us like a completed policy. We're happy to look at the draft at whatever stage it's at. Now we don't want to put too high expectations. We understand it's a draft.
Thank you for that note, Councillor Sharp. Okay, so that concludes that conversation. And the next final item is the Safety Fun Day. Olivia, can you report to us on how that all worked out?
Yes, so I didn't receive any emails about any ideas for the community engagement for the Community Safety Day. So there was no Grimsby Green Committee booth at that event.
Okay. And so that's the end of that discussion then. All right. Now the next item on the agenda, I think, oh, I could work all night. I don't have, I'm only working off one screen. Olivia, help me. I think we've concluded the agenda.
Yes.
All right. Any new business that committee members may wish to bring forward? All right. Thank you very much. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. And I would like to thank Aaron and Haley for the work you've done on the Green Awards with Olivia and staff. That's the next sort of major thing that we've got coming up for our August meeting. We look forward to receiving that. And if there is no further business, I would like to call for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:56. 7:56. Haley and moves, second by Ryan, and all in favor? Okay, folks, thanks very much. Have a good night and enjoy your summer. We look forward to seeing tans and all kinds of tales of fun, safe activities between now and hopefully August 24th. We do have a little bit of homework. Olivia's asked for some ideas. The trail master plan is asking for ideas. So please look at those opportunities because we have that door open. So have a safe summer. Good night.
Okay. Thank you guys. Good night.